So I recently played through Paper Mario and the Origami King and I really enjoyed it. The game is just great, the soundtrack is nothing short of brilliant, there are many different and crazy set pieces that our two-dimensional plumber has to survive, the humor and the writing are top notch, definitely on par with the first two games. The whole game is massive, yet it never becomes repetitive, it's just a truly well-made game. Yet there was this one question that I just wasn't able to get out of my head while playing the game. Why? Why does this game have a weird puzzle Sudoku style timer based combat system with no form of progression? Why do the weapons in this game break if we use them too often? Why does the game give us buddies that waddle around and talk to us but doesn't utilize them during gameplay? Basically, why does Nintendo refuse to reintroduce all those features that fans of the first games very vocally want to see return? So that's not a rhetorical question for once, like literally. Why? This question honestly started to kind of haunt me. I ended up spending way too much time thinking about why Nintendo refuses to produce the Paper Mario game that so many people want to see. And I believe I found the answer, or at least I have a theory. So today we're going to explore this question. We're going to take a look at a couple of Nintendo franchises and how they evolved. We'll discuss a couple of brilliant design decisions that Nintendo recently made, as well as chatter about a couple of incredibly dumb ones. We will find out how all of this is connected and why it is the reason for many of Nintendo's more recent design disasters. But most importantly of all, we're going to find out why the classic Paper Mario format had to die. So are you ready? Let's do this. Alrighty, right, so this video is basically a huge search for the answer to the question why the Wiggler Nintendo refuses to take the Paper Mario series back to its roots. But if we really want our journey for sense and meaning to succeed, we probably should establish what exactly the roots of the series are in the first place and what it is exactly that Nintendo refuses to go back to. So let's take a look at how the Paper Mario formula looked like in the first two games. So in the first two games, Mario has several partners that follow him around on his fantastic journey. Those partners often have small narrative arcs tied to them, and each act of the game is focused on one of the partners. But those partners not only help structure the story, but they also enhance the gameplay. Each one of them adds a new and unique ability that our Mario, made out of paper, is able to use as soon as the partner got unlocked. Abilities like kicking a shell to trigger faraway stuff, picking up Mario to fly over spikes, or my absolute personal all-time favorite, illuminating areas. Those abilities allow us to overcome previously inaccessible areas, to solve previously unsolvable puzzles, to find goodies, and so on. It's probably best to think about those abilities like the items that Zelda usually finds in one of the dungeons in the game series named after him. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Next there's the combat system. Combat in the first two Paper Mario games works turn-based. We always battle together with Mario and one of our partners against different types of enemies. After winning a battle, we are rewarded with experience points, which we can use to level Mario up. Finally, there are the badges in the game. The badge system in the first two Paper Mario games is really interesting and really brilliant. The badges are basically a skill tree that got cut down into its different branches and hidden throughout the world. They are items that we're able to find that grant Mario bonus if he decides to equip them. Some are a minor passive buff, like raising Mario's defense, while others are much more creative and much more impactful, like badges that unlock new attacks for combat. Think of it like the brilliant charm system in Hollow Knight. Finally, over the course of the game, we find upgrades to Mario's core ability set. That could be a new hammer upgrade that allows us to demolish even bigger blocks, a jump boot upgrade that allows us to jump towards higher places, or something more simple like paper planification. Hooray! That's the gameplay of the first two Paper Mario games in a nutshell. We arrive in a new place filled with many different things to explore, puzzles to solve and secrets to uncover. We experience a small story there, befriend a new partner that helps us overcome challenges or allows us to grab a badge in a previously unreachable area before we fight against dangerous foes, grow stronger and maybe even learn a new ability that allows us to explore previously unreachable places. It's obviously a bit simplified, but basically that's the gameplay of the first two Paper Mario games. Games that were highly critically acclaimed and games that hundreds of thousands of people fell in love with. And nothing of the gameplay we just took a look at is present in the modern Paper Mario games anymore. In Origami King, there are no partners anymore. There are sometimes companions that follow us around for a chapter or two, but disappear afterwards and aren't really of any use during combat. Combat in Origami King isn't the beloved crazy turn-based combat of the original games anymore, but instead a turn-based Sudoku-like puzzle minigame. Mario doesn't learn any new abilities over the course of the adventure anymore. Mario's skill set at the beginning of the game is his skill set at the end of it. There is much less focus on exploration. There are barely any things of value hidden throughout the world, like the brilliant badges, but instead we find folded toads or brittle weapons, which can only be used a couple of times before they break. There are no level ups, there are no new permanent items, there are no cool partner abilities, there is nothing. Origami King ended up being a really good game, at least in my opinion, but it managed to do so despite many flaws. The combat isn't really engaging, the lack of progression makes exploring and fighting feel really pointless. The fact that a bunch of partners that follow us throughout the game have no impact on combat or on normal gameplay anymore just makes it harder to care about them, and the brittle weapons just aren't a real replacement for the awesome badge system. It really speaks to the quality of the writing and the different scenarios in Origami King that the game ended up being so great, because the core gameplay is, at least in my humble opinion, far less enjoyable than what we had in the original Paper Mario 20 years ago. Just to be super clear here, this video isn't about Origami King thing bad. The thing is more like there's thing bad and otherwise thing good. So let's identify thing bad so that thing bad isn't present in thing good next time, and thing good might actually become thing great. So with all of this fluff established, it's time to press the pause button here and to take a detour through various other Nintendo franchises and weird decisions they made that at first glance are all kind of unrelated. But I promise everything is going to make sense once we come back here in a bit. Hopefully. I unironically don't know how many moons there are in total in Super Mario Odyssey without looking it up. I think it was 880 when the game came out, but I believe they added a bunch of hint art moons with a patch, and then there are also the moons that can be bought several times that make it possible to get the moon counter up to 999. Anyways, I always thought that this is such a weird design choice. Just think about this for a second. They designed all those worlds and all those secrets, all the challenge rooms, the wonderful 2D sections and whatnot, and then they decided to have a really weird, unintuitive number of total moons. Even stranger, they don't really push us towards collecting them all. The final number of moons the game pushes us towards is 500 for unlocking the darkest side of the moon, and then the game just goes on for how long we feel like playing it. Once we found the 500th moon, the game no longer really rewards us for collecting more moons. It doesn't even really acknowledge that we're getting closer towards having found all of them. You know, Super Mario Galaxy, for example, has this huge counter that slowly counts down how many stars we're missing until we found 120. And Super Mario Odyssey does the same thing, until we reach the dark side of the moon. But then the game just doesn't reward us for picking up any of the missing 380 base moons anymore. I've always found that to be a really baffling design decision, and it took me a while to come up with a tinfoil theory on why they handle it that way. See, the thing is the following: by not pushing us towards collecting certain moons, Nintendo opens up new possibilities to design moons. If we aren't meant to collect everything, then it becomes much easier for them to include much weirder and stranger stuff into the game. There is this weird moon in the deeper woods that requires us to capture a rich money bag and to spit out all of its riches towards a kind of random flower. For several minutes. That moon would be offensively bad in a game like Mario Sunshine. Imagine for a second that Sunshine expected us at one point to mount our friend and dinosaur Yoshi, to ride him to a random spot a minute away, and then to vomit delicious fruit juice for several minutes until a shine finally appears. That would be a catastrophe, wouldn't it? Actually, now that I come to think about it, they actually have a shine like that in the game, and it is a catastrophe. Yet Odyssey is able to get away with it, simply because Odyssey does not expect anyone to actually complete all the moons. The moon is more of a small joke or a little super weird secret that the developers left in the game, but not a substantial part of the game itself. Many of the 880 moons in Odyssey are like this. Some people may really like the walk the line challenges, some may hate it. Some players might love doing all the Koopa races, some may not enjoy it. Someone somewhere may enjoy collecting all the seeds and bringing them to the corresponding pots for whatever reason, I hate it. The same is true with the sheep moons or the hidden moon art moons, some of the challenge moons, and so on. By deciding that not every player is expected to collect every moon, by not pushing us towards collecting all the moons, Nintendo allows themselves to include weirder things into the game that maybe not everyone enjoys, but that some people may greatly appreciate. Just as an example, I really enjoy doing all the Koopa races across the kingdoms, but I'd rather do a full playthrough of Sticker Star before I do all the seed moons. But I'm sure there is someone out there that prefers to do the seeds or the races. This person is, in my subjective opinion, objectively wrong, but she's probably out there. Not all the content in the game is for everyone, but all the content is for someone, if that makes sense. If a person were to sit down with the honorable goal to binge through Odyssey until they picked up each and every moon, this lovely person is probably about to have a horrible time, because the game isn't meant to be played like that. It's meant to be played in a way where we choose which content we find enjoyable for ourselves. And as I see it, that's the reason why Nintendo doesn't push anyone to do any content they do not enjoy in Odyssey. It's not even necessary to complete all of the main story bits in each kingdom to see the credits. Like, if we wanted to, we can just say, screw the Wooded Kingdom, I don't give a toad about flower theft, let Torque Drift vacuum flowers in that silly tower for eternity, and let's head on with the main story. All the game asks of us is to collect a certain amount of moons in Wooded. But if we do that by playing the main story, or if we do it by just exploring, is completely up to us. The motivation to grab a moon should be because we, as a player, want to and enjoy grabbing the moon simply because it is fun to do so. If something in the game isn't fun for us, so be it. Someone else might find it enjoyable. But the game doesn't encourage us to do anything we do not intrinsically find fun to do in any way. It's what I like to call the no mushroom or no stick principle. They don't hang a mushroom on a stick in front of our faces, saying that if we only collect enough moons, we're finally able to reach the delicious and yum yum mushroom that hangs right in front of our face all the time. They do the opposite. They simply say, hey, here's our game. There is no mushroom or no stick to be found here. The game is meant to be enjoyed for what it is, for as long as you enjoy it, and we're confident that this is enough. In my reading, that is the reason why the game stops to reward us for collecting moons after finding 500. On the one hand, it allows them to add stranger stuff to the game, while it prevents them from pushing anyone to interact with the game in a way they do not enjoy on a moment-to-moment basis. On the other hand, another way to think about this is that Nintendo tried to subtract all forms of player progression from Odyssey until only the most necessary progression systems were left in the game, finding a certain amount of moons in any kingdom. Everything else in Odyssey is optional, and which moons we find is our choice as well. I always wondered what Breath of the Wild would look like if it were developed by a Western developer. Like, what does EA Breath of the Wild look like? How do shrines work in Breath of the Wild Bethesda Edition? And do our weapons break in Breath of the Wild Ubisoft version? And earlier this month, I actually found it out. Earlier this month, Ubisoft released the catastrophically named game, Immortals Fenyx Rising. And Fenyx Rising is basically Breath of the Wild Ubisoft Edition. The game takes place in ancient mythical Greek. There are dangerous, evil minions to fight against all over the map. There is a gigantic open world to explore, filled with small puzzles and other challenges. Fenyx, our protagonist, is able to climb almost every surface in the game, as well as the proud owner of a pair of magical wings that allow her to glide around. She's able to lift and carry heavy objects. There are dangerous shrines called vaults in the game that test Fenyx's platforming ability or her puzzle solving skills, and so on. The game definitely set out to iterate upon Breath of the Wild, and overall I'd say they succeeded in what they set out to do. I really enjoyed my time with the game. Exploring the world in Fenyx is a blast, but funnily enough, playing it didn't feel like playing Breath of the Wild to me, and I believe that this is, among other reasons, to a huge part because of the way Fenyx rewards exploration. There are tons and tons of different things that Fenyx Rising hands out as a reward for taking part in all the various activities sprinkled over its beautiful world. There are hidden shards that can be used to upgrade our lives, treasure chests that reward different colored shards that allow us to upgrade our gear. Beating one of the many dangerous vaults rewards us with a part of Zeus Lightning, which we in turn can use to upgrade our stamina bar. There is a golden amber that allows us to permanently enhance our potions using a skill tree, and most importantly, there are those coins which we can use to teach Fenyx new and exciting abilities. Wherever we go in the world, we will find some of those resources that allow us to grow our character. It's the core gameplay loop of Fenyx. Explore the world, find some resources for one of the several upgrade systems, return to the hub, level something up, explore the world, find upgrade materials, and so on. You see where this is heading? All those systems are mushrooms on a stick. We play the game so that our character gets stronger, so that we can play the game, so that our character gets stronger, and so on. There's always a new upgrade, tangling in front of our faces, giving us an extrinsic or arbitrary motivation to interact with the content of the game. We're not only motivated to fight enemies because we enjoy the simple act of doing so, but we're also motivated because we're really close to a level up. We solve puzzles not only because the puzzles are enjoyable for themselves, but because we're really close to a significant weapon upgrade. We don't only explore the different places of the world because they're a joy to explore, but also because we're only 2 shards away from a health upgrade. That's not a bad thing, by the way. Pretty much every AAA game nowadays has systems like that in place. The honorable folk living in marketing departments of AAA publishers like to call such systems RPG systems, but I think progression systems is the better term here. And that's really fine. I really enjoyed Phoenix Rising. I really enjoyed God of War, or Horizon Zero Dawn, or every other major third-person action-adventure game that features tons of tacked-on progression systems. Incrementally, leveling up a character just feels really great and rewarding and keeps people playing. The only problem I have with excessive progression systems is that they can be abused to keep people playing a game, which they stopped to find enjoyable to play on a moment-to-moment basis a long time ago, but that's a discussion for another day. What? Pokemon Go has nothing to do with that. The point that I'm trying to make here isn't that progression systems are inherently bad or something, because they aren't. What I'm trying to establish here are 2 things. First, that most games have more progression systems than they really need to have, and second, that probably every game developer, other than Nintendo, would have filled a game like Breath of the Wild with tons and tons of different progression systems, like we can see in Phoenix Rising. Every game developer, but Nintendo. Because in a certain way, Breath of the Wild is the antithesis to all of those different progression systems. Breath of the Wild is the no mushroom or no stick principle turned up to 11. Breath of the Wild's progression systems are turned down to the absolute minimum. There are only 3 forms of character progression systems in the game that I can think of, and they are all as minimalistically designed as possible. There are the Korok seeds, which are rewarded for mindfully exploring the world and offer useful additional weapon stashes. There are the shrine rewards that are the reward for almost all of the content in the game and upgrade health or stamina, and then there are the armor upgrades that are fun to get and sometimes open up new and interesting ways to play the game, but are as optional as armor upgrade systems get in games. That's it. Not even the weapons that we find are a permanent upgrade, since they famously tend to break. Just let's take a look again at how many different incremental progression systems Phoenix Rising needs to keep players playing. Breath of the Wild's scope is much bigger than the one of Phoenix Rising is, yet they get away with only 3 minimal systems. It's the same idea as with Mario Odyssey's moons. It's this idea that we should feel motivated to play the game because we intrinsically enjoy our time with the game, not because there is a mushroom tangling in front of our face that we desperately want to eat. Breath of the Wild turned this intrinsic motivation idea up to its maximum volume. All areas in the game, but the Great Plateau, are optional. All shrines are optional. Not a single Korok seed is required to beat the game. Even the 4 main dungeons of the game are by no means required to see the credits. The whole idea of Breath of the Wild is to explore all the fantastic things that are hidden all over the place in Hyrule, just because it is enjoyable to explore them. And once we've seen as much as we wanted to see, we can end the game by simply going to Hyrule Castle. Some people might go for all shrines, some might not. Some might collect 600 Korok seeds. I only grabbed around 300 during my first playthrough. You get the idea. This idea of designing games around people intrinsically enjoying a game for what it is, instead of arbitrarily motivating them, is an idea that is present in almost every game that Nintendo releases nowadays. But nowhere is it stronger than in Breath of the Wild. It is what makes Breath of the Wild such an exceptional game, in my opinion. It's also a big part of what makes Super Mario Odyssey such an interesting game. It's part of Nintendo's current design philosophy, and is present in almost every game they put out. But this focus on intrinsic motivation also has a toxic side, an evil side, an infectious side that corrupted many of Nintendo's beloved franchises. A dangerous side. There's this thing that video games often do that probably every single one of you wonderful ladies and gentlemen watching is familiar with, but that I don't really have a name for. You know, the classic Metroid thing? There's an obstacle that our hero of choice can only bypass by learning a new ability. Or there is a cool optional item hidden, somewhere in plain sight, but the only way to obtain it is by obtaining a new skill first. The best example for what I'm waffling about might happen at the start of the original Metroid on the NES. In this game, the very first thing that our brave hero called Metroid, has to do is to run to his left and to learn the ball transformation ability, because further to the right is an obstacle that he can only bypass if he learned about ballification previously. We're going to call something like that Metroid Ability Growth Advancements, or MAGA for short. And we're going to call it Metroid-like ability growth. So Metroid-like ability growth is in tons of Nintendo games during the N64 and the GameCube days. It is present in every Zelda game, since those are obviously built around Link finding new and powerful weapons during his adventure. The Pokemon games feature the HMs that add new abilities like surfing or moving rocks to our ability set over the course of the game. The original Luigi's Mansion has Luigi find 3 different element medals that act as upgrades to his vacuum cleaner and allow him to solve previously unsolvable puzzles. Metroid-like ability growth happens in the Metroid Prime trilogy. Obviously, it is a huge part of Donkey Kong 64 and the incredibly underrated game that Wario Land 3 is. Heck, there's even Metroid-like ability growth in Mario 64. The 3 different caps in Mario 64 are unusable at first and have to be unlocked separately before we are able to use their unique abilities. The same is true for the water nozzles and Yoshi in Sunshine. This concept that we learn new abilities over the course of the game just was present in tons of beloved Nintendo franchises. So I know what at least one of you is currently thinking. Yeah, Ceave, you're alright, of course that is everywhere, it's the most video gamey thingy ever. Tons of games, old and new, have systems like that. It's present in Banjo-Kazooie and in Sonic Adventures 2, the same way it is in 2018's God of War game. Learning new abilities that allow us to overcome previously unsolvable problems has always been part of video games, and it probably always will be part of video games. And you know, I tend to agree with you here, it's just Nintendo hasn't really released a game like that in almost a decade. The Zelda series moved away from this concept in Breath of the Wild. All abilities that Link has at the end of the game are the abilities he has at the end of the tutorial. They stopped making Metroid games. The Luigi's Mansion series dropped the concept, so did the Mario series. Don't get me wrong, by the way, I don't think that the Mario series should have stuff like that. It's just an observation. There are only 3 exceptions that I can think of out of all the games released for the 3DS, the Wii U and the Switch by Nintendo. And that's first Pikmin 3, but that one was released in 2013 and we have no idea if they plan on ever releasing a new one. It's 2013's A Link Between Worlds, and that game is remarkable in that it actually tries to shake up the old formula where Link gains 1 new ability per dungeon and instead makes most of the abilities available at once, and Mario and Luigi Paper Jam. Probably. Truth be told, I still haven't gotten around to beat Paper Jam, but I assume that Mario and Luigi still learn new abilities and get upgrades in this game, the same way they did in the older titles. And that's it. That's the only 3 exceptions that I can think about. So despite my honest and best efforts, I did not manage to replay every single game that Nintendo published over the last decade for this video, so there are probably 1 or 2 games that I missed, but it doesn't really matter for the point that I'm trying to make. The point here is that around 2000, Metroidvania-like progression was present in almost every Nintendo game, but nowadays it's a rarity. They removed it from almost all of their franchises. And I believe that this is not by accident. I believe that this is by design. And I believe that the reason Nintendo hasn't really used Metroid-like ability growth in over a decade is linked to why Mario Odyssey has 380 moons more than the game pushes us to collect, and to the fact that everything in Breath of the Wild is optional content but the final boss. But most importantly, all of this is linked to the baffling design decisions they made with the Paper Mario series on the 3DS and the Wii U. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the point of the video, where it is finally time to put on our tinfoil hats and to go into full conspiracy theory mode. It is time to take a look at all the different evidence pieces we established over the course of this video and to try to piece them together. It's time to come back to our mystery from the beginning of the video. It is time to crack our case. Not a single Nintendo console, up until today, features a system-wide achievement system. You know, those achievements that pop up in Steam when we manage to beat the first boss of a game, or on the PlayStation 4 if we, I don't know, kill a 100th enemy or whatever. So to be honest, I never thought too much about that. Nintendo isn't exactly famous for having all the state-of-the-art features when they launch their consoles, and I always thought the fact that they have no achievements is simply because, well, because they're sometimes a bit, behind the current innovation curve? That is, I used to think that, until very recently actually, where I stumbled over a really interesting quote that the Nintendo of America head of marketing, Bill Trinan, made back in 2011 while watching one of Mark Brown's lovely Game Maker Toolkit videos. In case someone is not familiar with Mark's videos, I highly recommend checking them out. So Kotaku basically asked Trinan why the 3DS won't have a system-wide achievement system, and his answer was the following. Basically, the way the games are designed is they're designed for you to explore the game yourself and have this sense of discovery. In my mind, that really encourages the sense of exploration, rather than the sense of, if I do that, I'm going to get some sort of artificial point or score that's going to make me feel better that I got this. And that for me is, I think, more compelling. Alrighty, right. So Nintendo actually knows about system-wide achievement systems. They just don't want to have them in their games because they feel that they are arbitrary. Instead of the game being rewarding to play in and of itself, they reward us arbitrarily for playing the game. Bryce Holiday, the game director of Luigi's Mansion 3, said something similar when asked about why Luigi's Mansion 3 doesn't feature upgrades to Kotaku in 2020. Upgrades and skill trees aren't very Luigi. He's a reluctant hero who already has the skills and bravery needed to tackle any problem. Players are helping Luigi overcome his nervousness to expose his true talents. Cleaning, destroying and collecting are engaging Zen experiences that everyone is familiar with since childhood. It is compelling even if there is no other reason than the act itself. It's once again the exact same idea of a game being intrinsically rewarding to play instead of featuring arbitrary rewards to keep us playing. Even though I strongly disagree with the statement that cleaning is an engaging Zen-like activity. This idea was present in Nintendo in 2011 when the 3DS launched, and this idea is still present today. This idea, I believe, is one of the absolute core design principles with which Nintendo tackles every game they develop. It is this idea that led to them designing Mario Odyssey with hundreds of moons more than the game rewards you to collect. It's this idea that led to them drop everything that previously defined the gameplay of the Zelda series, like linearity, or that Link permanently finds new items, and led to them design a gigantic open sandbox. It's this design philosophy why Nintendo almost never uses traditional progression systems, like level ups, while the rest of the industry plasters their games with them. It's this idea why their games suddenly started to cut all forms of Metroid-like ability growth. This design philosophy might even be part of the reason why we haven't seen a new Metroid game in ages. And honestly, I respect that they're doing that. Actually, I adore it. Video games are starting to be old enough of a discipline that we have something like certain principles of game design. Developers simply have figured out what to do to make a gunshot feel impactful, or how to lead a player through environments using light and colors, or how to keep players engaged by permanently having a mushroom on a stick tangled in front of their faces. But if every team uses the same toolkit to solve all the same problems that game devs tend to face, then they end up all finding the exact same solutions, which is the reason why it feels as if every second game features the exact same skill tree. One way to not always fall back to the exact same solutions when encountering problems is to arbitrarily restrict oneself. Restriction breeds creativity, and I believe Nintendo willfully restricts themselves to not use any forms of arbitrary reward systems in all of their games in order to find more creative and more pure solutions for the problems they encounter when designing their games. More often than not, this approach led to amazing titles. They really pushed the industry forward with some of their more recent games, and most importantly, millions of people are happily enjoying many of the experiences they crafted. However, and this is where Paper Mario comes back into the picture. Sometimes this idea just goes so fundamentally against what a game tries to be that it simply does not work. At the beginning of the video, we took a lot of time to establish all the features that were present in the first two Paper Mario games but have vanished since. If we take a closer look at all the things they refused to reintroduce, we can see that all of those systems, in one way or another, arbitrarily reward us for playing the game. We can't have a turn-based combat system where Mario levels up over the course of the game, because leveling up would be an arbitrary form of progress. So we get either a stupid card combat without progression or timed Sudoku puzzles. We can't have Mario befriend exciting partners that add new abilities which allow us to overcome previously impossible to overcome obstacles, because that would be one of those Metroid-like ability progress systems that we try to avoid. We can't have badges hidden everywhere in the world anymore, because those would provide an arbitrary reward for exploring the game, instead of just exploring the game as a mean to its own end. Instead, we get hundreds of fun to find but ultimately meaningless toads and weapon items that break after a while. We can't have Mario learn new cool abilities like folding anymore, because that would mean that the options to interact with the game change over its course and our design wouldn't be pure anymore. We either give Mario all the abilities we want him to have at the beginning, or we can't have it at all. It's a perfectly valid decision to decide to cut out all the Metroidvania elements, all the mushrooms on a stick, and all the progression reward systems when developing a game. It breeds creativity, it can lead to incredible games like Breath of the Wild or Mario Odyssey. But if they put that into every franchise, every series and every game, then they forbid things to naturally grow into the direction they try to grow. I really enjoyed Origami King, but I can't stop to wonder what the same team would have been able to do considering their talent if they were allowed to make a classic Paper Mario game. So just to be completely clear here, this is basically a conspiracy theory. I have nothing to back this up other than a hat made out of tin and foil, a couple of observations, and a bunch of cats that agree with me. Yeah, I know that you disagree, but the other cats are on my side, okay? But the only way I can make sense of all the things that happened to the Paper Mario series is that Nintendo forcefully tried to remove all RPG and progression systems from the game until a collectible card game combat system without partners was all that was left. Nintendo appears in a certain way to be addicted to only developing games around an idea of intrinsic enjoyment. And as it is so often in life, that is not only Nintendo's biggest strength, but also their biggest weakness. This idea allowed them to push some of their franchises into really fascinating new directions. But I truly believe that it is time to drop this idea for a couple of other franchises, because those franchises simply need a bunch of arbitrary reward systems to work. So, I hope you enjoyed this little video. Getting the different pieces of this video together was honestly the most difficult and exhausting thing I've ever written, and I'll probably take it a bit slower over the coming weeks because of that. Also, did we really just do a video of this length about the Paper Mario series without a single paper pun? Wow, I didn't know that was legal. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up and maybe feel especially like hitting the subscribe button today for merely more reasons than that you enjoy clicking the subscribe button as a means to no ends and want to hit the subscribe button as well. I hope that all of you have a wonderful day, the paper pun isn't coming, and to see you soon. Goodbye!